If you've ever bitten into a warm pão de queijo and heard that tiny crackle before the center turns soft, stretchy, and almost melts on your tongue, you already understand why Minas Gerais holds a special place in Brazil's heart. Today I'm bringing you right there with me, to that Minas feeling, the kitchen warm, the coffee brewing, and a baking tray that never seems to stay full for long. I want this to be simple and light, like a good conversation at the table. Because pão de queijo isn't just a recipe in Brazil. It's that welcome you feel when you arrive somewhere and someone says, "Sit down, have a coffee," even if it's the middle of the afternoon. It's the smell that drifts through the house and makes people wander in without being called. And yes, it's naturally gluten-free, but the real magic is the texture, crisp on the outside, tender inside, with that elastic pull that tells you it's the real deal. I'm going to show you my traditional way, the one that respects the classic ingredients and the method Minas families have relied on for generations. You'll see exactly what goes in: sweet tapioca flour, milk, oil, eggs, and the star that gives it that unmistakable personality, minas cheese. Not just any cheese, but the kind that tastes like time and care, with a gentle sharpness that perfumes the dough while it bakes. And since we're doing this properly, I'll explain why each ingredient is there, not in a complicated way, but in a way that makes you feel confident. Because when you understand what creates the crisp shell and what creates that stretchy interior, you stop guessing and start getting consistent results. While we're here together, if this kind of Brazilian kitchen story is your thing, give the video a like so I know to bring you more recipes with real culture behind them. And tell me, what's your biggest curiosity about Brazil? Now, let's step into the first key moment, the one most people skip without realizing it, because it doesn't look dramatic until you taste the difference: heating the milk and oil until they're truly boiling, and using that heat to transform the starch before we even think about adding the eggs and cheese. As soon as you say Minas Gerais, I can almost hear that familiar kitchen soundtrack: a kettle starting to hum, a wooden spoon tapping a bowl, and someone in the next room asking, "Is the coffee ready?" That's the mood pão de queijo carries with it here. It's simple, warm, and somehow always feels like you're being welcomed in. Let's start with what makes the traditional version work. The base is sweet tapioca flour, that snowy, fine starch made from cassava. It's the reason this bread is naturally gluten-free, but more than that, it's what gives pão de queijo that stretchy, chewy pull when you tear one open. Then we have milk and oil. People think they're just liquids, but they're doing real work. The milk brings softness and a gentle sweetness, and the oil helps with tenderness, moisture, and that golden, crisp shell. Eggs come next, and they're not optional if you want the classic structure. They bind everything, help the dough puff, and give the inside that smooth, custardy bite instead of a dry, crumbly center. And then the star, minas cheese. It's that Minas cheese that's been aged just enough to be flavorful and slightly sharp, but still melts beautifully. When it hits the heat, it perfumes the whole dough with that unmistakable savory aroma that makes people wander into the kitchen just to check what you're making. While I'm gathering everything on the counter, tell me something: have you ever tried pão de queijo outside of Brazil? Did it taste the way you expected, or was it missing that real Minas feel? If you're enjoying this kind of deep, cultural cooking breakdown, go ahead and subscribe, because we're keeping it practical and true to tradition. Now here's where most recipes either become magic or just okay. The next step is the secret professionals don't skip: scalding the starch. In a moment, I'm going to heat the milk and oil until they're boiling, and pour it over the tapioca flour while it's waiting in the bowl. Listen for that soft sizzle. Watch how the starch changes. This is the turning point, and once you see it, you'll understand why the texture can't be faked. Now that everything is on the counter, this is where pão de queijo stops being just a recipe and starts being that Minas Gerais magic people talk about. In a big bowl, I add the sweet tapioca flour, and you can already feel how fine and light it is between your fingers, almost like powdered snow. It doesn't smell like wheat, because it isn't wheat. This is why it's naturally gluten-free, and why the texture can be so unique when you treat it right. In a small saucepan, milk and oil go in together, and I keep my eyes on the surface like I'm watching for the first signs of a storm. When it reaches a full boil, not a gentle simmer or real rolling boil, I turn off the heat. This next moment is the turning point. I bring the pan to the bowl and pour the boiling liquid over the starch all at once. You hear it immediately, that soft hiss, like the flour is waking up. And you smell it too: warm milk rising with a clean, comforting scent that feels like a kitchen with an open window in the countryside. I grab a wooden spoon and start mixing right away, fast, with intention. The starch clumps, then loosens, then turns into a thick, glossy mass. This is scalding the starch, and it's the professional secret so many people skip. If you've ever had pâte de queijo that stayed dense, didn't puff, or lacked that stretchy bite, this step is usually why. You're partially cooking the starch now, so later it expands and holds air in the oven, giving you that crisp outside and soft, elastic center. As it cools for a minute, I add the eggs, and it looks like it won't come together at first. It's messy, a little stubborn, and that's normal. Keep mixing until it turns smooth again. Then comes the cheese, that mayakura that smells slightly sharp, slightly buttery, like a good minas pantry. When it folds in, the dough changes, more supple, richer, and suddenly you can imagine the first bite. If you're enjoying this kind of real Brazilian cooking, let me know with a quick like. And tell me, have you ever tasted pão de queijo in Brazil, or only outside the country? Either way, stay with me, and if you want more Brazilian food culture like this, subscribe, because next we're shaping these little rounds and getting them ready for the oven. Now comes the turning point, the part that separates pretty good from that real minas bite, scalding the starch. I'm standing by the stove with the milk and oil heating up together, and I want you to actually hear it when it reaches the right moment. Not warm, not steaming, politely boiling. That's the cue. In minas, people say this step wakes up the polvilho, and honestly, that's exactly what it feels like. I pour the bubbling milk and oil straight over the sweet tapioca flour in the bowl, and the kitchen changes instantly. There's that soft, starchy aroma, like fresh bread is already on its way. With a wooden spoon, I start mixing right away. At first it looks messy and stubborn, like it doesn't want to come together, but keep going. You'll see the starch begin to turn glossy and a little translucent in places, and that's what you want. This is where the structure is born, where that future stretch gets locked in. I pause for a second and scrape the sides, just to show you the texture. It should look like a thick, hot dough with little clumps that start merging as you work. If you skip this boiling step or you pour it in lukewarm, you can still bake something that resembles pão de queijo, but it won't have that elastic chew. It won't rise with the same confidence. And the crust won't sing when you bite. While it cools just enough so we don't cook the eggs on contact, I'll ask you something. Have you ever made pão de queijo and wondered why it turned out dense, or why it cracked strangely? Tell me what happened in your kitchen. And if you're enjoying these small, practical details, give the video a like, because the next part is where everything starts to look like the pão de queijo you recognize. The dough is warm now, not scorching, and we're ready to bring in the eggs and that mayakura cheese that makes minas taste like minas. Once those go in, you'll see the transformation, soft, smooth, stretchy. And then we'll shape them and send them into a hot oven, where the magic becomes golden. Now the dough starts to come alive, and you can actually feel why this recipe is so loved in minas. The tapioca mixture is warm, almost like soft sand after rain, and when I crack in the eggs, one at a time, it looks messy for a second, like it won't come together. Don't panic. This is the part where patience pays. I mix and press, folding the dough over itself until the eggs disappear and the mass turns smooth and glossy. It should be soft, but not runny. It should pull away from the bowl and leave just a thin film behind, like it's saying, okay, I'm ready. Then comes the scent that changes everything, the cheese. Mayakura has that slightly sharp, dairy-sweet aroma that instantly feels like a kitchen in the countryside. I add it in and the dough gets heavier, richer, more elastic. When I squeeze a bit between my fingers, it stretches, then snaps back. That stretch is the promise, crispy shell later, and that chewy, steamy pull inside. I wet my hands with a little water or oil and start shaping. Small balls, about the size of a walnut, rolling them gently so the surface is smooth. There's something calming about this step, like preparing little bites of comfort for the future. I set them on a baking tray with space to breathe, because they're going to puff up and get proud in the oven. The oven is already hot at 200 degrees Celsius, and that heat matters. I slide the tray in and listen for the quiet beginning of the transformation. A few minutes in, the kitchen warms and the smell turns to toasted cheese and milk, like an invitation. When they start to swell and the bottoms take on a deeper color, you know minas is happening in your oven. While we wait, tell me, have you ever tried pão de queijo that was truly stretchy inside, the kind that makes you pause after the first bite? And if you're enjoying this little trip to Brazil through food, stay with me and subscribe, because the final minutes are where we nail the golden finish and the best way to serve it, Minas style. And that's the moment I wait for every time. You pull the tray out, and the kitchen instantly smells like warm cheese and toasted starch, almost nutty, almost buttery, like a hug that came out of the oven. Look at that colored golden, not pale, not dark, little round breads with a crisp shell that lightly crackles when you tap it. I let them rest for just a minute, because if you bite too fast, the steam will remind you who's in charge. Now watch this. I break one open. You hear that soft tear, and inside it's still moist, airy, and stretchy, the kind of stretch that tells you the scalding step did its job. That boiling milk and oil didn't just mix with the starch, it transformed it. This is why the inside doesn't turn dry or bready. It stays elastic, it stays tender, and it carries that Minas cheese flavor all the way through. In Minas Gerais, this isn't just a snack. It's afternoon coffee time. I picture a simple table, maybe a lace cloth, a cup of strong coffee, and pão de queijo arriving while people talk about their day. There's no rush. Someone reaches for a second one without even thinking. It's comfort, but it's also energy, warm carbs, protein from the eggs and cheese, and that satisfying bite that feels like it resets your mood. If yours didn't come out perfect the first time, don't worry. The dough teaches you. Next batch, pay attention to the feel. After you add the eggs, the dough should be smooth and soft, not runny. And when it bakes, trust your eyes more than the clock, you're looking for puffed tops and that even golden glow. If this recipe helped you, give the video a like so I know to bring more Brazilian classics to the channel. And tell me, what's your biggest curiosity about Brazil? Is it the food, the traditions, the regions, the ingredients you can't find where you live? Subscribe if you want to keep traveling through Brazil with me, one warm bite at a time.